Go ahead and open your notebook up to mini lessons and write session 11 at the top. The first thing that I want you guys to know about today is that our lesson is going to talk about how sometimes characters can be torn by competing pressures. When we were in our character unit, we talked about how those pressures, both internal and external, affected the way that our characters' traits worked. This time what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how a place can also have its own pressure, and that pressure makes your character act differently during that time. So last night your homework was to think about setting and work around how that setting was changing the way your character was acting. You were thinking about significant words that your author used to describe a place or a situation. So go ahead and find your partner and take 1 minute to share your homework from Friday. All right, go ahead and head back to your seats. Friday, we investigated that the role of setting plays a big part in shaping our characters. And we thought about the kind of place Will is in and how that particular mood or atmosphere of that place really affects him. It's like he's led away from his inner moral compass by the pressures of this place. So we can think about the story, The Fight, when we're thinking about these different types of moods and how it affects the character. So what we're going to do today, and what I want to teach you today, is that when characters seem torn, they're acting one way on the outside and a different way on the inside. It's sometimes because they're being pulled in different directions. So I'll say that again. When a character seems torn, when they're acting one way on the outside and a different way on the inside, it's sometimes because they're being pulled in different directions. You can consider the ways the pressure of a place might be pulling them away from their inner compass. So I want you to listen to how I go ahead and do this session with you. One thing that I can think about is using the story, The Fight from Will, from what we know so far. Will already has kind of told us some things personally. Like, we know he's afraid of fighting. We know he feels like he can't win. But I'm going to bring up part of the text that goes on between Mike and Will. So Mike comes into the cafeteria, remember, and he says, "I hear you want to fight me," he said. Will says, "That's right," I said. "I'll meet you after school." "I'll be there," I said. Then he walked away, and I discovered two interesting things about myself. The first was that the idea of fighting terrified me, and the second was that in moments of extreme fear, my body produced ice-cold sweat. So if I look at the text, I'm going to say to myself, okay, so Will says that's right? He says, "I'll be there." He acts on the outside if he wants to fight Mike. But let's see how he feels on the inside. Okay, if we study how he reacts in his thoughts, we see that the idea of fighting actually terrifies him. So he feels terrified, but he acts tough. So that's kind of a key thing to me that I want to pay attention to. I can see that those pressures are conflicting. I'm going to go down here and actually add this in so that you can see it. Okay. The other thing that I kind of think of is, if I think about why Will is acting this way, it probably has something to do with the kind of school he's in. We talked last week that in this school, particularly in gym class, in the lunchroom, that this eighth grade has become kind of this tough place, and maybe that accounts for the inconsistency in Will's thoughts and actions. Um, it kind of seems like the kind of school where you have to be tough and cool. And so Will can't say, for example, sorry, I don't want to fight you. It was just a misunderstanding. I shouldn't have been talking that way. He's torn. Okay, he's got this inner conflict. He's got a conflict that says, I need to keep a cool exterior so people still see me the way that they've always seen me, and I can't let them know what I'm like on the inside. So it's kind of this big mess that we have. You might notice the same things happening in your character's life. They're acting on the outside towards people a different way than they're actually feeling on the inside. So see how I focused on one small moment when a character is torn? So when he seems to feel differently on the inside and then he acts differently on the outside. It could be a moment when your character thinks one thing and then says something else. Or maybe he feels one thing and does something that doesn't go with that feeling.